I've mentioned this before in other videos that right now we're in the middle of a communist takeover, not just the United States, but the entire world. And these ruling people, these communist, whatever you want to call them, elites, um, they all have connections with each other. For example, Trudeau of Canada is the love child of Castro, Fidel Castro of Cuba. Both of Trudeau's parents were extremely promiscuous, and his mother traveled. Actually, I think both of them traveled to Cuba at different points, but his mother did, Trudeau's mother. And Medium.com has a really good article about this. Yeah, it's pretty much certain Trudeau is Castro's son. And we've talked about this in other videos. These people, they marry and they try to present like a normal family life, but they're really, many of them are sex deviants. They're into orgies and things of that nature. We recently had an official in New York, for example, who mentioned that even while he was ordering lockdowns, he was participating in these wild orgies and sex parties. Um, these people, like I said, they marry, but it's a front for their deviancy. Of course, there's all the whispered rumors that Michelle Obama is actually a man, and that would not surprise me one bit. The dancing on Ellen clips where, Big Mike had a bulge where most women don't was a little bit weird to me. I'm still not 100% sold on the idea that Big Mike is a man, a transgender or whatever, or a transvestite or who knows. But like I said, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that were the case. And there are just many, many other deviants who, the Clintons, for example. Bill Clinton at points mentioned that he's infertile. So, where did his daughter come from? Well, Hillary is known to have had some liaisons with all manner of other people, and there's some conspiracy theories about who the real father of Chelsea is. Another example would be the Pelosi's. Nancy Pelosi is, I think the term is a beard. Paul Pelosi is a homosexual. He was caught with a male prostitute in a vehicle at one point, and then there was, the Hammer Time incident fairly recently, where the Hammer quote unquote attacker has basically been silenced and imprisoned indefinitely. But the establishment's trying to cover up the fact that Paul Pelosi is a closet homosexual, and this is just typical. You look into these people, and there's a lot of deviancy. Like I said in another video, these are orgy people. They, on the surface, try to appear to be normal, well-adjusted human beings, but they're not. They're degenerates, and they want to rule over the rest of us. And I've mentioned this before, that in open societies like the U.S., the crap kind of rises to the top, and the reason for that is your normal people just want to live quiet lives, peaceably, build their families, work their jobs, and it's the psychopaths who want power and control over others who are going to be seeking the positions of authority, and because they're the ones mostly seeking them, they're going to be the ones mostly getting them. Now, this economist, I don't know James Rickards, but he says that Kamala and Walz are Marxists, they're communists, and they're trying to destroy the United States and a lot of tradition and culture all at once, and he's absolutely right on that. Let's talk about this a little bit. So Kamala Harris, she's the daughter of a Marxist economics professor. That's just a fact. That's the reality. And then we have Walz. Walz has made, let's just say, at least a couple dozen trips to China, which is pretty weird, right? For a Democrat, for a governor of a fairly unpopulated state that you don't hear too much about. It's a little strange, right, that this guy is making these trips to China and that he's a member of organizations that have ties to the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party. Um, sorry, the Chinese Communist Party. Did I get that backwards? Anyway, yeah, these two are both communists. And what worries me about them is they don't stand for anything. You notice that? They don't really have good family situations. Um, there's been, well, I'm just going to leave the hearsay where it is, but there's some weird stuff going on with the personal lives of both of these individuals. I will just say this, that a lot of people think he is a closet pedophile, and she's basically a prostitute. And actually, ironically, in one of these rallies, Walls actually slipped up and called Kamala a great prostituter instead of prosecutor. That was kind of funny. Anyway, um, but let's talk about these guys a little bit. They're both power seeking for the sake of holding power, but they're empty vessels. They don't really stand for anything aside from their extremist Marxist ideals. And they've both promised that they're going to do some pretty extreme things, or they have done some pretty extreme things in the past. For example, Walls. He's very left wing, extremely radical. Probably more radical than Kamala, actually. Um, so there were, I believe it was the Kenosha riots, now that I think about it. I might have that wrong. Anyway, there were some riots in his home state, and he basically did nothing about it, and then said, well, as long as America won't embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion, this sort of thing just has to keep happening. And during those riots, his wife would actually open the windows so that she could enjoy the smell of burning car tires. During the COVID lockdowns, this guy had police in one town going around with paintball guns, shooting people who were on their porches or in their yards for daring to violate the lockdown instead of being in their houses. So keep in mind, these folks were on their own property, on their porches, in their yards, and he was having police fire on them with paintball guns. That's Let me put it this way: if someone did that to my family, I would be sorely tempted to shoot back, and I'd be using a 30 caliber rifle, not a paintball gun. That is ridiculous stuff. And then this woman has promised that the government's going to be going into people's homes and checking on their firearms and how they're stored. I don't think so, Kamala. I'll die first. But these people, they lack the self-awareness. They're stupid people. They're very indoctrinated, and those two things go hand in hand, by the way. The more indoctrinated someone is, the less competent they are. But indoctrination does mean that they're very driven and very motivated to pursue a goal, even if it's, evil or a failed experiment like communism, which over and over again communism fails. And because the system fails, those in power are constantly purging the rest of society and eliminating threats. Solzhenitsyn called it waves of repressions in his work, The Gulag Archipelago, in order to maintain power, because they're not competent, they're not truly governing, they're not delivering solid results and good results to the nation. So communists end up just having to purge large numbers of people in order to keep themselves in power, which is why we've seen communist regimes worldwide have murdered hundreds of millions of people. And that's exactly what's going to happen here in the US if these people are installed into the White House. We're already seeing waves of repressions. The two most notable would be January 6th protesters, many of whom have been imprisoned with their right to a speedy trial basically being trampled upon, and Catholics who are vocal about abortion, because abortion, baby murder, is a sacred sacrament of the extremist left. It's something that they absolutely are not willing to compromise on whatsoever. I will say this, regardless of what your position is on abortion, and if you've been on my channel for any length of time, you've noticed that I have a video that says it's evil under all circumstances. I'm not in favor of it. even in circumstances of rape and incest. Why not? Well, because of the biblical principle that you don't punish the child for the sins of the father. Understand that a baby is a baby, that's a human being. You're going to murder them because someone else did wrong in conceiving them in the first place. That's just adding evil to evil. So I'm not in favor of abortion under any circumstance. But abortion is a sacred sacrament to the radical left. And we've aborted upwards of 50 million babies in this country. And that's just this country, that's not worldwide. It's astounding, the slaughter and bloodshed and blood guiltiness that the nations have on their hands due to abortion. And actually, that's something that we see in the end times God judges humanity for. They will not repent of their fornications, and they will not repent of their murders. And you ask the question, well, that's mighty interesting, because we're talking about, the population of the world as a whole. Would you say that a large number of people are murderers? Well, when you factor in abortion and God's perspective on it, that is a human life that he gave, those who commit abortion, yes, they are murderers, and many of them are unrepentant murderers. They will not repent of their fornication, they will not repent of their murder, and so God is going to judge them eventually. But I've gotten off on a little bit of a rabbit trail there. But understand that we're in a very dangerous position right now. The country could very well slip into communism, and it could happen this year. And I don't know exactly how that would play out. Maybe a lot of people would just roll over and go along with it for a while, hoping that eventually the pendulum swings back the other way. But the reality is, if we fall into communism this time, the pendulum is not going to swing back the other way ever again. As I mentioned in my other video, which may get removed and might get me in some hot water, I laid out all the different ways that our electoral system is broken. It's not going to get better if we have another 4 years of communism. This is probably the last election that we'll have if Kamala and Walz are installed to power. I like this little caption. Tim Walz and Kamala Harris, the most radical presidential ticket since Democrats were promoting slavery. And that's something that I'd like to touch on too. Yeah, the Democrat Party has always been a party of evil. They're the party of Jim Crow, the party of slavery, the party of segregation, party of the KKK, because after they didn't get their way during the American Civil War, the KKK was an extremist terrorist faction, basically, that would do things like going around and killing free blacks who were trying to get an education, killing whites who were trying to teach free blacks how to read and write. The KKK would assassinate politicians and office holders who were taking things in a direction that the KKK and the Southern Democrats didn't like. And now today, what's the main thing that the Democrat Party stands for? Baby murder and communism, but especially baby murder. Because understand that population control is a big part of what these people believe. They think the earth is overpopulated. And so baby murder is a good way to, keep the population from growing, but it's not enough. As I've already mentioned, we're going to see waves of repressions. I can give you an idea of some of the waves of repressions that are coming next if these guys are installed to power, because they've already promised that this is the direction it's going. Yes, we are coming for your AR-15. Lawful gun owners and patriots are going to be targeted by these people. People who exercise their free speech in person or online are going to be targeted by these people. And we know that because they're already doing it in the UK and Canada, where people are being arrested for posts they post on the internet that contradicts the government's official narrative. And of course, anyone who speaks out against abortion is going to be hunted down. We're already seeing that, where lawfare is being employed, basically the legal system being used as a weapon. It's going to be employed to punish those who go against certain narratives. We can fully expect that people will be persecuted if they're unwilling to use preferred pronouns and go along with the woke agenda on things like the transgender stuff and drag queens and perversion like that. Um, we're going to see some tremendously evil things if these people are installed to power. And I really don't expect that I'll live 4 years, because I think they're going to start moving very quickly. They're probably going to start moving very quickly if they steal the election in November. They'll probably start moving right away with some of the other things that are coming up. And if you're aware of, CBDCs and the carbon credit system and how that's being rolled out and implemented, and man, oh man, you can expect, I fully expect that we're going to see a major transformation of this country, and not in a good way. Not at all. Another thing that communists do, well, I'll leave you with a couple things. They hate religion. And so lawful gun owners and patriots will certainly be one of the waves of repressions, but Christians will be as well. Really, any religious organization. So the CCP, on one occasion, they got a particular Chinese nationalist pastor in their sights, and they took him, his wife, and I believe it was a son, their child. And they took his wife and his son, buried them up to their necks, and they had a bulldozer standing by there. And they told him, renounce Christ, and he refused, and so they plowed his wife and his son under with the bulldozer, killed him. And then they told him again, renounce Christ, and he wouldn't, and so they shot him in the head. And, that's what you can expect under full communism. They hate all faiths. When they went into Tibet, I'm told that they made the monks fornicate with each other and tortured and killed many of them. If you like freedom of religion and freedom of speech and the right to keep and bear arms, and you hate communism, and you hate waves of repression, and you hate having these infiltrators everywhere in society, so you can't speak your mind freely because someone might tattletale on you to the establishment, and then you'll be getting a visit from the secret police, which in our country is the FBI. And they'll ruin your life, or they'll destroy you, or they'll send you off to the gulags. Or they will destroy you and your family, because that happens too. Here's another thing that happens in China. Under the Soviets, this happened. Let's say a party member or a member of the communist military, let's say they want your wife, or let's say they want your daughter, and they go to your house and say, hey, give us your wife, give us your daughter. And you can resist, they'll shoot you in front of your family, and then they'll do whatever they want with your wife and daughter anyway, and then maybe kill your wife and daughter, or you can just go along with it, and you actually have a better chance of surviving in that case. But then, of course, you've failed as a man. You failed to protect your family. And I'm not speaking figuratively here. These things happened. These things happen. If you like the idea of liberty and justice for all, these two are not your candidates. Yeah, we're in a bad place. I don't know what's going to happen. I feel like even if Donald Trump and Vance somehow, by a miracle of God, make it into the White House, we're just going to be in a similar position 4 years from now. It's just a matter of time before we fall to communism, or whatever you want to call it. I call it communism. Whatever it is, it's a godless, secularist, anti-human, corrupt, totalitarian system. Communism fits, and But there's all manner of labels for it. In 1984, Orwell called it INGSOC. What does INGSOC stand for? English Socialism. And lo and behold, guess what? In the Crown nations, as I call them, the UK, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, these were some of the most totalitarian and oppressive, repressive regimes during COVID. INGSOC, English Socialism, it's here. It's growing. These people represent it. These people will be rolling it out. These people are stupid and lack the self-awareness to really understand the weight and consequence of the things that they're proposing to do. You come down here to East Tennessee and shoot me with paintballs for not being at my house during some kind of made-up pandemic lockdown. Like I said, I'm going to be shooting back with a 30 caliber rifle. Or you come into my home and try to seize or inspect my firearms. We fought a war over that, over the state imposing itself into people's homes and barracking soldiers in people's private homes. Remember, that was one of the things that the American Revolution was fought over. But I think these people are crazy enough to do these things. They're full of themselves. And they think that they're going to be able to get away with it. It's tremendously shameful that in 2020, a con man and a prostitute were installed into the White House. That says a lot about our country and where we're at. And now are we going to let the prostitute, all grown up into a full-blown communist tool, and this guy have the highest office of the land? I sure hope not. But let me say this, I do think that if these two are installed to power, that Kamala they'll kill her off, and it will be Walz, because Walz has the direct CCP connections. He's got a main line to China. This guy has been groomed for leadership. And he's kind of, well, anyway. I've said my piece. I'm not interested in living under a communist regime. And, well, I voted accordingly today. I hope you will too, because this may be the last chance we have to vote. My hope is that the votes will be so overwhelmingly obvious that they won't be able to fix the election. If the votes are even close, all the mechanisms I talked about in my previous video are going to come to play, and these two will end up being installed to power. At that point, I don't know what happens. People may go along with it for a while, thinking that the pendulum will swing back, which it won't, but eventually it's going to get bad enough that we will have civil war in this country. I don't know. Some of us may be killed off long before that point in time, that point of resistance ever occurs. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I will say this, it will not be boring. God bless. Take care.